Welcome once again to Lehto's Law. Here's Steve Lehto.
I remember years ago, there were some stories in the news nationally about some buy here, pay here used car lots that would put a device on a car that you bought, and they'd tell you, they say, by the way, if you miss a payment, we can shut your car off. And a lot of people are upset by that because they'd say, well, what if I'm not driving? Is the car going to die while I'm driving? They say, oh, no. It'll only mean you can't start the car, so you'll be okay. Soon enough, there were reports of people out driving around, car stalls, they can't get it restarted. And cars don't always stall exactly where you want them to. So that was one of the big issues. And I hadn't heard about this in quite a while. So I wasn't sure if these were still a thing or not, and apparently they are. From WLBT, Mark sent me the story and said, Steve, remember these? Dealer's GPS disabler leaves drivers stranded 2 years after paying off car. Harry Samler, Lindsay Bazzi, and Deborah Dolan wrote this. And the story is datelined out of Marietta, Georgia. A man was driving through a small town in Alabama on his way to his mom's house in Mississippi just before Christmas when his car suddenly stopped working. He told WGCL, I'm just freaking out. I felt helpless, I'm a big man and everything, but being in a strange place is kind of nerve-wracking. Without knowing why his car wouldn't start, he had to call a tow truck and a mechanic, and he had to get a hotel. The tow truck driver diagnosed the problem, explaining there was a starter interrupt device remotely shutting down his car and preventing him from starting. These devices, also called GPS disablers, are installed by dealerships and lenders in order to guarantee loan payments. This man, however, paid off his car 2 years ago with a lot that he bought it from in Marietta, Georgia. And the technology was never removed from his car. So he paid the car off. They said, oh, great, you paid the car off. And they just left the equipment on his car. And now that's what's causing this problem, he thinks. So he said, I knew it was in there, but I thought it was gone, inoperable. When you're dealing with someone who has paid off their vehicle and has complete ownership, you can't just turn off their vehicle, his attorney said. You can't repossess their vehicle. You can't take their vehicle without criminal and civil liability. Now, a shop in Alabama removed the starter interrupt device from his car, but only after the man promised to send a copy of the title, because how do they know he's not trying to steal a car here? The car dealership claimed the device had been dormant since the man paid off the vehicle. They also said it couldn't have been a signal sent to the device preventing it from starting, but would need their mechanics to inspect it to see why the failure occurred. Now, the manufacturer of the device claims a code to deactivate the device was sent 2 years ago. They say once deactivated, there's no way the device could prevent the car from starting. So there's several possibilities. One is the code was sent, but it wasn't received. Another one is the code was sent, but something malfunctioned. And a third one is that this device just somehow is in there and caused a problem because it wasn't wired in properly or something. And I can tell you right now, if you take your car to a dealership and go, my car is doing something funny, and you start talking to them and say, oh yeah, I noticed it started happening after I installed that remote start. That's the first thing you're going to look at. You're going to say, oh wait, you installed something? So when this car won't start in a manner in which it looks like it's been shut off by a remote start, and you hear the vehicle's got a remote start on it, you would start looking there, I would think. Neither explanation explains why the man's car started once the mechanic removed the device. So it wouldn't start, they couldn't get it to start, they removed the device, now it starts. And the manufacturer says, it wasn't us. The dealership says, it's not how they work. Now, this man who owns the car tried for months to get reimbursed from the dealership for the $436 towing fee, mechanic, and hotel. A company spokesman apologized for the error and issued a check to the man for the full amount after being contacted by WGCL. So he had apparently complained to the dealership, and they said, don't know. And then when a news organization contacts him and says, hey, what's going on here? They said, oh, we can cut the guy a check for a couple $100, $436. Meanwhile, the attorney says there's no regulation for this device in Georgia, but he believes there ought to be. It can lead to incredibly dangerous situations. For all that company knows, this man could have been taking his wife to the hospital to give birth to a child. He could have been responding to an emergency situation. And, I've talked before about all these things that could have happened but didn't. But what it did do is strand the guy far from home in an unknown town where he had to pay to put himself up for the night. Several states have passed bills regulating starter interrupt devices, including Nevada, Oklahoma, and New Jersey. All three states include language making it mandatory for written consumer disclosure before devices are installed. That means that they must notify the consumer that the device is there. But simply knowing it's there doesn't make it work properly. Nevada, for example, passed SB 350 that included these regulations. Contract holders have to wait 30 days past the loan due date before shutting the car off. Give at least a 48-hour notice before disablement. And that's an interesting angle because since they can do this remotely, it wouldn't hurt them to let them know. It wouldn't hurt them to tell the consumer, by the way, you're late. You know what that means? We're shutting your car off tomorrow. Now, I know some people are going to say, but Steve, that might tempt someone to go out there and tamper with this thing. Well, if they're not going to be able to make their payments, they would have been tempted already, so that wouldn't make a difference. It does say they have to provide a 24-hour override in case of emergency. Installers have to be state certified, and customers can't be charged for installation or use of the device. Meanwhile, the company that makes these devices responded to the bill in Nevada by claiming after the bill passed that the delinquency rates on their loans went from 9% to 33%. And that might be true, but the question is how many people resolve those delinquencies when their vehicle was shut off a little while later. For people who are wondering if they have a device in the car, the answer is not easy. A licensed mechanic can check for you, but it takes them removing your steering wheel sometimes to get at a lower access panel and then finding the device, and they'd have to disconnect it and rewire your starter to close the circuit. And obviously, they're going to put that in place. It's difficult to reach, specifically to make it harder for somebody who's going to do that on purpose when they shouldn't be doing that. So I have no problem with the existence of something like this. I realize that's a real low bar. I don't mind that it exists. And I have no problem with the lien holder being able to say, that's our collateral. And if you don't pay on the collateral, we have the right to do things with respect to it, including coming and taking it. So putting a remote disabling device on the starter is an interesting way to do something with the collateral sooner and less expensive than repoing it. Because sending out a truck to repo it can get messy and cost money. And if they can simply flip a switch and shut the car off, or make it so it won't start, then that would obviously make the process easier because that would probably put some pressure on these people to make their payment. So I just think there should be some safeguards in place. And I don't even mind the 48-hour notice before disablement. Because like I said, if the thing is there and they know it's there, they know if they miss a payment, it very well could shut the car off. And so there shouldn't be any problem at all with letting the person know, by the way, you're late. You've got 48 hours to get caught up. And if you don't get caught up, we're going to shut the vehicle off in a way that it won't start. But this is an interesting problem because this guy here bought the car, paid it off, the device was there, and then 2 years after he pays the car off, it won't start and it strands him someplace. And the company that makes the device says it wasn't us. Dealership says it wasn't us. But the mechanic said, it's that device right there. So the good news is he did get his money. He did get his money. It looks like it's hard to say if it's $436 total or if that includes a couple of extra things or if that excludes a few things. But it does say that he tried for months to get reimbursed, and a company spokesperson apologized for the error and issued the man a check for the full amount after being contacted by WGCL. So I like it when the media gets involved and good things happen. Bigger question is, what if that had cost more than that? That's $1,000, a couple $1,000, let's say. You start to wonder at what point the breaking point would be. So Harry Samler, Lindsay Bazzi, and Deborah Dolan wrote for WLBT. Mark Sennett, thanks a lot. Dealer's GPS. Hey, how's that sound? Wait a second. It's a microphone right here. I mean, I've had that microphone in front of my face so many times a day for so many years, and I still hit it with things. And the funny thing is, and I worked in radio for years, you would never hit the microphone. Not when it's live. You just wouldn't do that. And yet, every now and then, you do that, and I know, because when I hear that right now, it doesn't sound that loud. When I'm editing, I know darn well that's going to be... So I apologize for that. I might cut it out in editing. We'll see what happens. Questions or comments, put them below. Let's talk to you later. Bye-bye.
Thank you for watching Lehto's Law. Until you cross the bridge of your insecurities, you can't begin to explore your possibilities.